morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, as well as our spiritual, ghostly supporters, Justin and John. How are you all today? Yes, happy October. Yeah. And, 38 months for the current eco. It is indeed me. Yes, it is me. And 20 months for Grey Wolf. Very nice, very nice. I have allergies. Allergies. Other than that, like, feeling, it's like, whatever. Yeah, I am here and, mostly, hopefully, recovered from my, extreme 6 weeks of not feeling well. Other than the damn allergies, which David and I are both suffering from. I did make myself go out yesterday and find a wedding dress and shoes. So that was my great productivity surge yesterday. Other than that, yes, it's October, and unfortunately my October is going to be disrupted by a wedding. Normally this is like my writing prep month for National Novel Writing Month, but instead I'm getting married. Go figure. Yeah. And hello everybody. Yes, welcome. We're going to be doing some preppy stuff. Yes, unfortunately. Hey, I'm like all into my writing. Like, this is a very important year for me, understand, because I'm publishing my books next year. Both of them at some point. January for the first one. That's the plan, although it may get pushed to February. So, weddings are great and all, but priorities. But yeah, this whole puppy thing has also thrown a monkey wrench into the writing. So what I'm going to do here, guys, is I've already kind of figured out that I want to do principally a reds and greens color scheme. I want reddish orange fur, and I want green for any cloth that's on him. Actually, I just realized I left my glasses in the other room, so 1 second. I really need to order like a few new pairs of reading glasses so I can literally have one in every room. Oh, don't get enough vitamin D from the sun until March. Yeah, I can see that with your weather, Greeneco. I take vitamin D supplements all year, pretty much, because I'm a nerd who stays inside a lot and does like writing and art things. And I've even gotten David to take it. Yeah, they all end up in the same room, right, Quindy? Exactly, right. My wedding is not going to be a ton of work, but it's still a disruption. Like, I don't know if you guys, like, any of you guys read or follow Nora Roberts, who is one of the most prolific authors writing today. But I kind of read, she wrote kind of a thing about her process a while ago that was, I'm feeling it, because she just hates disruption. Like, she just wants her life to be like, she can plan it, she's going to sit down and write from this period to this period. She just absolutely hates, like, disruptions to her schedule. And I'm like that. I'm feeling that. Like, I want, especially after this past year, which has been full of so many disruptions for me, I really just want to hunker down. I told David, I'm like, you can go on ski trips, but I'm not going anywhere for 6 months, like, after this wedding. But yeah, if you ever, Nora Roberts takes a lot of hate from the community online, and even especially the writing community, who thinks, who calls her a hack because, she writes so fast. But, so that's kind of why she did this kind of rebuttal post about, like, this is my process, this is what I do, But I found it just very, I had a lot of sympathy. All right, so let's look at this and break it down. He's got a little shirt, and I was going to make that green. There are just a few places. If I make the collar the same color, then I can do that. I can make his little leather fringe down here that color as well. He is wearing some metal, so I'm going to do metallics, I think, on this one. I need to look at that sword. I think I've got a little bit of a... Ah, did I seriously leave my knife in the other room too? But I need to take that little bit of a mold thing off of the sword. 1 second. But anyway, Nora Roberts' point was that, like, when she doesn't have, when she's got disruption in her schedule, she can't concentrate, and so she can't get stuff done. I feel that. I totally feel that. I'm definitely at my best when I can sit and concentrate. So now I have to look at these little bits on the sword here. This is definitely, this little part here is definitely an artifact that needs to be taken off from the molding process. It's a little nubbin of plastic. Sadly, it's also a nubbin of plastic that does not want to come off. There we go. Better. Now I need to look at the hilt here and see what that is going on. Because I feel like these also are nubbins of plastic that need to be taken off. So I'm going to take them off. For the most part, Bones USA is really clean. But I feel like this is definitely a part that does not need to be on the sword. Yeah, I like NK. She's a great writer. Like, I am jealous of NK because, like, boy, that woman, like, that prose, amazing. She's just amazing. I love anybody who can write that lyrically, like NK can. She's just a lyrical writer. Like, her prose is beautiful and her stories are interesting. But yeah, like, but I'm with Nora. I'm like, if I can't have, like, my schedule, like, I don't get things done. Like, it's so hard to get things done for me. Whereas if I have a nice period of, like, just undisrupted schedule where I can just do my normal routine, then I get a crap ton. I can get immense amounts of stuff done, like more than a normal human sometimes, I feel. But it's like, it's all or nothing for me. Like, if there's disruption, I feel like I'm just, like, fighting tooth and nail to get anything at all done. All right, I think I've got all my mold lines off. I did wash this model so that we'll be ready to go. So we've got essentially a little cape. That can be green. I'm going to say that, actually, this is the cape looping around at his neck. I'm pretty good at self-accountability at this point. If I just don't have disruption, then I can essentially use my journaling and my my little planners for accountability. But it took a while for me to get to that point, especially for things that are important to me, like the writing. So okay, so we've got a little bit of green then at his neck, and if I make the little fringe here green, that'll be okay, and it works because the cape totally hides the armor fringe on the back. And it's got the sword between it. Like, it's not gonna... It only butts up the green of the cape and the green of the leather is only going to touch right here. And I can put a shadow there to kind of separate it. Same over here. There'll be a shadow under the pouch, so I can do that. So I think I'm going to go green, green, green. And then I've got to kind of look at the rest of it. The fur is here. That's going to be... I just have to look. He's got little armor bits here. So he's got, like, armor vambraces, but he's got fur there. I may have to go white with the shirt or off-white. I'm going to go brown with the leather here. Probably a reddish brown, since I've got separation between the fur and that. So I may go saddle brown here or ruddy leather, just to work with the fur a bit and kind of repeat that. We'll see. I'm going to block in the fur and see. So... Yeah, routine driven. Yep. Yeah, exactly, Agent Marvel. Yeah, and the same with the puppy, right? I've had to adjust, although that's changing, you know, pretty much every month. She's a little bit different, so... Fabled Beast, you shouldn't have anything that's impossible to reach unless you've constructed it without painting it. So before you even put a model together, kind of hold it together and ask yourself, can I reach everything? If you're talking about areas like underneath here, Like, I've actually done a video on that for my Patreon about under areas, but anything that you can't really see into or that's hard to reach, just honestly just flood it with walnut brown. You can use black too if you're that kind of person who likes to use the black on the model. I don't. I will flood it with brown liner, rogue shadow, or walnut brown, and just kind of keep it dark. Nobody can see it, then you don't have to paint it. But yeah, I did a video on this a while ago for the Patreon. I think it was last year. That how to paint, like undersides and hard to reach areas. And that's a very that was a very like truncated, like there's more to it, but yeah. But in general, I always hold the model together and see how much I can attach without getting in the way of myself. And I'll paint pieces separately if they're going to hide something. So, like, here's an example. I don't have this model up. I'm thinking about kind of switching him in for October. But I have the Blood Wolf Vampire guy. So he's got a sword, and his sword I guess it's based on talent art. But the sword goes across his body. So as you can see, I haven't even primed the dang thing yet. Because I know I'm not going to attach it until I've painted it and everything else. So essentially, for something like this, I wouldn't even attach it. I'd just start painting, and I'd prime this and start painting it. Because otherwise it'd be impossible to reach behind that. But with things like the genie that are already put together, I mean, he's pretty open. But back here with the sword, at least it's bones, so you can bend it out of the way. But anything like where you really can't reach, like underneath the Mousling there, where it's really hard to see, yeah, I just go shadow. Just lower the volume then, Twistodoma. If you can't mute your TV, the next best thing is just to lower the volume so that you can hardly hear it. Yeah, I mean, and this is where thinking about lighting will help you, right? It's like, if you think about it, you can see that there's a really dark shadow down there just from the lighting here, so you shouldn't have to paint that. Alrighty, so let's put Mr. Vampire back here. I'm still waiting on Ron to get me that witch model. I need to like drop him an email and remind him. I think I'll wait. I think I sent him a text last week. So if I still don't have a witch by the end of this week, then I'll email him again. Because I really want to paint that witch for Halloween for the stream. So if I can get her, then I'll paint her all over the week of Halloween. It would be pretty funny if I actually put in an order and get a ghoulie bag and get the witch in it, and I get that like 2 weeks earlier than Ron sends me one. I'm already, actually, this is kind of like what we're doing like right now, Fabled Beast. There are many different ways to do this. Obviously, I'm not Zenith priming this model, which, is one way you could do it. You could prime kind of aiming that way and get some of your suggestions in. But I am actually going to start out, where is a good blue for this? I want complementary. So, all right, here's the dealio. We're going to do some actual OSL on this model, which means that actually I want to block in shadow colors actually first, in the most part. So I'm going to start by painting the model as if it's completely in shadow, and then I'm going to add in the light sourcing. We're going to do it that way. And to do that, I need to think about my shadow color. So the way that traditional painters do it is, first of all, you have to ask yourself, what color is your light source? And so we have to figure out what color this torch is. And I am most likely doing like Candlelight, or, haha, we actually have Torchlight. These are very similar colors. You could also use Sun Yellow. A torch is usually a lighter color than like a big bonfire. For the bigger the fire, the more red tones you tend to see in it. It also depends on the fuel source as to the color of the flame. But most torches you're going to see like that, and you're going to get, do I have fire orange out? Let me see. I would normally use fire orange. I'm not sure if I have fire out with me here. I think I don't. But in the lack of fire, I could use explosion and add a little white to it. So I know I'm going to have mostly yellow light coming from this torch, with just maybe a hint of orange in it. So it's going to be warm, and that's part of why I'm using Candlelight Yellow, because Candlelight Yellow is an orange phase yellow. It's not made with a green phase yellow pigment. It's all orange. So it plays to that, and it plays to being shaded a little bit with the explosion orange. The week leading up to Halloween, Grey Wolf. After Halloween, I'm done with Halloween. It would be the last week of October then. So first of all, you need your light color. So let's just primarily look at these guys. So in portraiture and other traditional painting, your shadow color, the color you mix into your shadows, is the complement of your light color. So if we are yellowy with some orange, that means purpley is the complement of yellow, and bluey is the complement of orange. So that means we need an indigo. Let's see. This is why we should always keep indigos around. So I could use a really vibrant indigo, or I could use something like night sky. Rich indigo is more blue than purple, but night sky is more purple than blue. So I think I'm going to use night sky indigo to mix into my shadow colors. So all of my colors on my model are going to have night sky indigo mixed into them because it is the complement of my light color. But there's more to it than that. So I need to mix a little bit of this into every shadow color. I know that. But then I have to look at the actual colors that I'm using. And to mute those colors out, I'm supposed to add a bit of the complement of them. So I'm using reddish brown, which essentially is an orangey red. And I'm using green. I've got Naga green right here, but I was going to mix it a little bit to tone it down a bit. But I'm going to be mixing it, I'm toning it down with shadow color anyway, so I'm probably going to be just fine. So for here, I want to add a little bit of red. And for here, I want to add a little bit of since it's an orangey red, I want to add a bluish green probably, so a teal. I could just mix these colors together to mute them out. They're close enough. You don't have to be like persnickety perfect when you're choosing to mix a complement into another color to create a shadow. Just muting it out a little bit in line with where you think is probably fine, especially because I'm also going to be adding in indigo. So let's actually set this up. Let's actually set up our fur color and mix complements into it to create a shadow. And then we'll do our green, and then the gray is going to be pretty easy because gray doesn't really have a complement for the NMM, I mean. Oh, that's right, I was going to think, okay, I don't know if I'm going to do metallics after all. We did do metallics. I was just realizing that I probably don't want to do. Let's see. Hold on, let me look. We got that sword blade. We have some, for the most part, I was going to do metallics because the Mousling in general has bigger metal pieces. They're still pretty tiny, but yeah, maybe I'll do metallics. It just means I can't set it up right out the gate though, because I do a uniform base coat for my metallics first, so it might be a little confusing to look at. That's my concern here. Hold on, I've got a tiny bit of flash left over from that removal. All right. Well, we'll get everything else going on. Fur. Yeah, Agent Marvel, brighter colors are actually more useful than muted colors. You can always mix a muted color from brights, but you can't do the opposite. So let's do our auburn shadow, which is going to be our fur color. Oh, I need to shake it up a little bit, and I need to... I'm going to do, as usual, 4 drops. And then I'm going to add a tiny touch of, let's see here, what's a good color? A tiny touch of Deep Ocean, which is a green-blue. About half a drop, pressing it against some palette there. And then I'm going to add a drop of Night Sky Indigo, which is the complement of my light color. And I'm going to mix those in and see what my color turns out to be. It should darken it a bit. But I've got a lot of red in here, and so it's fighting it. So I do actually want to use a full drop of Deep Ocean, I think. I mean, some of us just like muted color palettes, and that's fair, and so you can, especially when you first get into the hobby, when you're not mixing. It may not occur to you. So that's darkening it and muting it out a bit, but I still need more. So essentially what happened here is that Auburn Shadow has an immense amount of high density red in it. And that red is pushing back pretty significantly against my other colors. So I'm going to do a full more drop of that one and a full more drop of Deep Ocean. I know I want it pretty dark. Okay, that's more like what I want. So that looks more like a shadow color. Notice how it's muted out. It's no longer the vibrant color. Let me grab my big black base here and see if I can show you the color. Yeah, so it's no longer the really vibrant color. It's more purpley brown now. More purpley brown. But that is a good shadow color, a natural shadow color for our red fur. Yeah, we have very loud crows around these days. All right. So now I'm going to block that shadow color in all over where the fur is. You can make some beautiful muted colors. I'm just going to honestly cover the whole Mousling, even though the ears and the eyes and everything are going to be painted differently, of course. But I am going to cover everything. This is the shadow. So we're going to paint him as if he's in shadow first. Then we'll bring up the light. And I've done like lighting effects a lot of different ways, and this is my first time trying this way. But I've been wanting to do this way for a while. Like, I've been wanting to try it out. I felt like it should work pretty well. And it makes me go strong with my shadow color. And I'll go even darker in a moment. I hold off adding in a black color for as long as I can. But I am, if I want this, depending on how dark you want the area he's in. If he's in a dungeon underground, then his shadows are going to be really close to black. Whereas if he's more in a ruins at like twilight or dusk, then this is more what you're going to see. And I want to make sure we get everything. You can see how it's a very faded color. It's not at all rich. It's a bit, it's not quite that. Oxblood is more of a richer red, I think, Twistedoma. I personally feel like Oxblood is closer just to the original Auburn Shadow color. You can see how that's darkened and cooled off. Remember, shadows are darker and cooler, so that is what we are doing. Now you will have, this works very well for warmer light sources. I personally feel that for cold light sources, it's easy to get confused using this method. So if you're doing something like a bright, like blue light source, then it's going to be a little different. You're probably going to have to actually look at some stuff in nature and figure out what would happen. But in general, if you're working with natural daylight or another warm light source, this is the way to go. Yeah, and unnatural light sources tend to be a little bit weirder. They aren't as intuitive. All right, cool. And then you've got his little paw and his little wrist there, his arm. Sadly, I've got a very pointy, I mean, I kind of want a pointy tipped brush for this base coat because I am, it does have little tiny bits. So I kind of do want the precision. Just means base coat progresses slower. But yeah, so this guy, once we finish kind of base coating him, you should really feel like he's in a cool, darker environment because of the colors we're using to set up. When David painted his Kingdom Death basic models, where they're pretty much just like in rags and with a lantern, he painted everything pretty kind of a dusky blue-gray, and then he brought up the lantern light on them. And this is kind of like that mixed with traditional art theory. And there's a little arm up here somewhere. There's a little paw. There's that elbow. This is a very precision Mousling. It is very cleanly sculpted. There we go. Alrighty. So very cool. Very dark, very cool. That's what we want to start with. Yeah, the temptation is to do NMM after all on this, just because of that I can follow my rules that I'm following right now to paint in that NMM. But I could still do metallics. It's just going to be a little titchier. Alright, I don't have any other thing there. I'm actually kind of curious. I'm betting this color is very actually close to Nut Brown. I'm betting it's almost an exact match for Nut Brown. I'm going to put a little drop of Nut Brown next to it just to see. Yeah, it's actually a perfect match for Nut Brown. The color I mixed for the fur is actually a match for this, which is hilarious. So now I need to figure out what brown I want to use for the leather, and I need to do my green. Let's do the green next. And then I'm going to think about the leather, because now I'm going to change, knowing that I've actually gone in that direction with the shadow color of Nut Brown. I'm like, well, maybe I need to pick an orangier color for the leather, something different that's going to stand out. He went to ZBrush. Yeah, Gene converted to ZBrush. This is a ZBrush sculpted mini for sure. Alrighty, so I was thinking I would use Naga, but I wanted to soften it a bit. So let me look around. Leaf Bud is actually closer to what I really wanted. So maybe I'll do a mixture of Naga and Leaf Bud Green. I really love Leaf Bud Green, and I've been wanting to use it. So let's do kind of a mixture. We'll do... we'll unclog our Naga Green. Yeah, I haven't checked in with my friend Shani yet to see. I don't know if they're still out of state or if they've moved back to Florida to see what's up. Okay, so that was easily 2 drops of Naga. The paint was very enthusiastic at the end. Might need to do a little bit more Leaf Bud then to knock that Naga down, although it will be getting knocked down, so maybe I'll just do a couple drops. Wanted it just a little lighter and a little more yellow. So this is what's going to be called our local color. So just like the auburn shadow is my local color for the fur, this green here, it's going to be my local color for the cloth and some of the leather. But remember, we must put our other colors into it. So first, the opposite of my light color. Night Sky Indigo does have some black in it. It does have some gray in it, so it actually makes a pretty good shadow. So I'm going to pop a drop of that in, just one drop, because this color is weaker than the auburn, so we don't want to overwhelm it. What's the complement of this? It's a greenish or a yellowish green, so a purplish red is going to actually be our complement. Do I have a purplish red in here somewhere? Technically, Urgathoa would be a good one. Well, clear magenta. The thing is if you want real mixability, you go with the clear Brights Agent Marble. But if you want some coverage, then that mitigates that response. So if you're getting them purely for mixing, it's different than if you're getting them to actually like paint with, base coat with. So I think I actually did a Patreon thing on this also, like the most useful primaries, the best coverage primaries. But I like Cyan Blue 9117 in place of Clear Blue if you're looking for a paint that has coverage as well as mixability. I usually would say for greens, I tend to recommend both Naga Green, the one I'm using right now, and Brilliant Green 9227. Naga is more yellow and lighter and brighter. Brilliant is more blue. I wouldn't get, I probably would not get magenta itself except for highlights then. I would pick up magenta to build highlights, but you could also pick up Runic Glow. Here's the deal with purple. Clear magenta is going to let you mix the best highlights for purples. But it has crap coverage because magenta pigment has crap coverage. So usually Runic Purple and Runic Glow are the two Runic colors. These guys can essentially, Runic Glow is magenta and white for the most part. And so this is a good highlighting color. Usually when you use magenta, you're not necessarily using pure magenta. You're looking for something as close. But I mean, I'd say those guys, I'd say Imperial Purple 9023 to give you a bluish purple. But you get a very bright, saturated result if you are working with these guys. But I would say clear magenta still, like, just because if you want to mix purple highlights, then the magenta is going to be very useful. But it's a very, I would say it's a more advanced color if you're not used to mixing, and if you're looking for base coats, I wouldn't grab it. And Sunrise Orange is always my orange recommendation, 9406, I believe. Although in this case, as I pointed out, I'm using Explosion Orange or Fire Orange. Everything is got a use. All right, so we really, really are going to screw up this green now. Let's screw it up. It's going to change a lot. It might totally go out gray. Yeah, Miss Stimp has a good point. Rhonda also did a thing on this. Her colors are going to be different than mine. Look at how much that changed, guys. Welcome to our shadow green color. Very, very dim. I'm going to switch to my Zero Reaper for this, actually. The other one's a little bit too pointy. And we've got our little cape there at the throat. So very, very muted out colors here. It's a medium olive. It's a little bit more muted out than Swamp Green. And it's not as dark. Swamp Green is actually more of a vibrant green than this. So I'm going to call this our shadow ground color, our shadow local color. Because you still, you know, have some variation in your highlights and shadows, so I'm going to be shading these. But do notice that the colors actually do somewhat go together. They're both muted, a muted red and a muted green. I think I'm going to be bringing in more indigo to shade this. Let's see. I'm going to paint the underside of this cape green, but I am going to go back and probably shade it with a much darker color. Now, another thing I did in choosing colors for this model was that I took into account that my light source is yellow. And so colors that I am using, such as green and reddish brown, are very easy to highlight with yellow, right? You can mix yellow directly into them for highlights. With the green, it's going to go to a much warmer, lighter green, right? And the for the red, it's going to go more orangey, right? So it makes sense that the light, you kind of know already how the light will impact some of those colors. Now this green is still pretty warm, and I am going to cool it down a bit. I think I'm going to use my Night Sky Indigo to do that. Maybe even a little bit of a liner color if I want to throw it a little bit darker. So in that shirt, I definitely want to be kind of a cream off color. Hey, Riesland, thanks. Thanks for the sub. Thanks for the resub. And welcome. Oh, your backyard after the storm. Yeah, it's a good military green, this green. But remember, this is just a shadow color. I'm going to actually mix up a separate pool of Night Sky Indigo, which is my shadow color. And I'm going to add something to it to darken it a little bit. I have a couple of choices here. Probably Death Knight Black would be my best choice because it is itself a dark indigo. You could use black indigo as well. Let me see if I think I've got DK around here. The question is, where did I stuff it? Where did I stuff my Death Knight? Let's see. Might have to go with something else if I can't find it. Why do I have 2 bottles of this in here? Seriously. 2 bottles of things I don't need. I could also use black indigo. Let me see. Here it is, Death Knight Black. So this is a blue violet that's been toned way down with the black. It's a liner color, even though it doesn't say liner on it. Using a liner instead of using black indigo is a strategic choice because I know the liner doesn't have as much high solids, high density pigments in it. So it's not going to overpower my indigo as much. Death Knight Black is actually a pretty weak color. Makes it a good shader, good translucent shader, but it is it's not super strong. It doesn't have super great coverage. That means it's not going to shift our Night Sky Indigo too dark, which is good because I don't want Night Sky Indigo to be too dark. Where's my mixing brush? There I go. I just want it to be a bit darker so that it can create some nice shadows that are in line with what I've already mixed into those. Yeah, see, it hardly impacted it at all. So I'll need to add another drop of the Death Knight. What I'm trying to do here is just create a general all-purpose shadow color that is opposite my light source in the color wheel terms. That's getting a little bit darker. Okay. Might take it a little bit darker. We'll see. We'll see how it works. I don't want to use pure Death Knight. Maybe I'll just add a little bit more in. But I do want a decently dark shadow color, so a couple more drops. And this is kind of a pretty color combo right here, if you look at it. That took it a little bit darker. All right, so this will be my general all-purpose shadow. Hey, Patrick. So now let's see what I can do with this. Actually, I probably need a small brush for this, so let me grab one. Smaller, anyway. I'm going to kind of look at what areas are opposite the torch. And I'm going to paint in a little bit more of this indigo. I'm going to leave some areas more, a little more reddish. You can see the indigo going in there. And I want a little bit of this here. So what I'm doing is just using this to kind of lower it down, even cool it down even a little bit more. Add in some shadow color even to the green that I have right now. Mute it out even more. Kandikari, I don't know that there's one that's smaller. I really don't want to tackle any really big models. If there was a dryad, I could see that. Like the old Werner dryad. I don't know if that's still in print. So I'm going to actually mix some green with this night sky and see what I can get. Taking a little bit darker. What questions do you have about tree things, Kandikari? The problem with tree things also is that they tend to be very boring. There's a lot of bark and there's a lot of leaves. Or whatever. Alright, so this is where the light's going to start coming in. I'm going to mostly concentrate my indigo shadows over here. I'm going to paint it under the jaw as well. Alright, let's see. And a little bit on the underside of the arm. So as I mentioned, I haven't actually tried this technique before. Just something that I decided I kind of wanted to try. Backside of the ear is going to be pretty cold. Directly opposite. The best thing to do, Kandikari, is to actually look up pictures. We always think of bark as brown. It's actually not. It's gray. Usually brownish gray. Sometimes it even looks purplish, depending on the light. That said, a lot of us expect tree bark to be brown because we've been painting it that way since we were little kids. But I mean, if you want it to look real, if you want it to look realistic, then definitely find some references. So bringing in some cold, and I've got to see, got to look at my fire. When we're looking to see whether something is going to catch a highlight, we're always looking at the fire and we're lining it up with, lining our eyes up with it to kind of look past the fire and see what it will touch. So you can see that the fire will be lighting this crescent of the ear right there, but it's not really going to be hitting anything down low. so I can go and block in a little shadow down there. Let's do actually a fleshy tone and show how that will be changed for the ear there. Where's my rosy skin? Rosy shadow will work. But I believe Spirit of the Forest was large, am I correct? I don't want to take on a big model that's got a bunch of stuff on it. Alright, so we've got now a skin color for the interior of the ears. So just like normal, we're going to want to mix in a little bit of our shadow color. Opposite the light. And then we're going to look at this color. This color is a pinky orange that's had some brown added to it. Brown also counts as an orange. So we're going to be using our blue-green against it then, just like with our fur. Yeah, trees are really difficult to paint, mostly because they're not necessarily sculpted with an eye toward realism. It's just they're difficult to create that illusion in miniature. So mixing those colors in produces a gray. Which is about right, because if you look at my skin up under the light, if we look at the shadows, you see that they are gray. So if my skin tone is similar to rosy shadow, then you can see that the shadows do gray out, and that this color is actually very close to what it should look like. This is what I'm talking about with realistic shadows. You may balk at it, but it is there's a reason it works. Yeah, I don't know. It depends on if I really want to paint the model too, Pendrick. Like, I seem to recall that model, and I think I already actually speed painted one of it for Reaper a while ago. A long time ago when it first came out. I don't know if I want to do another one. I tend not to be a fan of tree things because they do tend to be boring. The only tree thing I own is actually the Games Workshop Tree Man, which is a cool kit. But I still haven't touched it, so that tells you something. Get this color in. And I will be blending the edge here a bit into the fur as well once I have a base coat down. Yeah, wood and trees are some of the very hardest things to do in miniature. Now here, on this ear, you can see if you line your torch up that it's probably going to hit that entire ear. Like, maybe the only thing it doesn't, no. The entire, essentially the torch is exactly lined up with this ear. So this ear will be painted in the proper color. It's not easy, but it is like, it's certainly possible, Grey Wolf. I was going to do, somebody already asked if we're doing wood, but specifically more like wooden objects. I know, it's really a hard thing because every like tree man or entity like seems to have a slightly different sculpt. The bark's going to be different. I mean, in general, guys, you paint like tree bark like you paint anything else. You ignore the texture, paint your highlights and shadows, and only then pay attention to the texture. Kind of like painting hair. But, I mean, but it really is like a kind of look at nature thing. Like looking out my backyard here, I can see one tree that's much browner, but that also has shinier bark, and it's like it's reading that way. It's got much finer bark. Then I have a grayish tree over here that's much more cobbly bark that looks like cobblestones almost, and it's not shiny at all, and it's much more gray. Um, you know, with the surface, the edge breaking up as it moves into shadow. Like, so you really, this is why I encourage you to look at exact examples when you're painting anything from nature. I'm going to grab some Death Knight and some blue liner, and I'm going to start lining some of this stuff. I'm mixing my blue liner into my Death Knight because, as I mentioned, Death Knight is a weaker liner. It's a really good shader, but if I want a harder line, and I do on this because it's a cartoony figure, then I don't want just Death Knight. So I'm going to do a mixture of blue liner and Death Knight. Right. See, it's not just simple. It's not just easy to do a tree. It would be better if you're like, I want to paint this tree man like he has oak bark. And I need an oak bark, you know, tutorial. But then it's like, well, then it's very specific, right? Sometimes I have to think on these things a while and just come up with a way to teach it that will be utilitarian. So I'm ruminating. But, okay. Let's get our our new liner color mixed up. So look at also how these colors, they actually do go together pretty nicely. This is actually a kind of pleasing color succession. You could like... Yeah, that's the problem. That's what limits it, right? Most sculptors wouldn't do a birch. Like the bark wouldn't be sculpted that way, so you wouldn't be able to paint it that way and have it look right. I mean, almost the best wood is the wood that also tends to irritate people, sadly, which is the wood without any texture. Then you can paint it how you want, but then people complain because there's not enough texture. I mean, I'm always just kind of like, get close, right? Sure, you could get that persnickety about it, Pendrake. Oh, I'm using a very thin brush. Oh, I must have brought my other brush into the other room. So now I've got a very dark liner, and I can start lining some of these areas. There are apps for identifying trees, but if I recall, most of them are like... There's one for leaves, foliage, but I don't know about bark. But they aren't, I don't know. The free ones aren't great, and I didn't bother to pay for one. I was using one for a while just to identify stuff in our yard. So putting in some more darker shadow toward the dark side of the model, using my liner to do that. Still leaving a little bit of my reddish shadow color though. So here again, I'm really darkening down these shadows, and what that will say to the viewer is that the model is standing in pretty deep shadow overall, with maybe only a slight ambient light. I'm not really a Mousling connoisseur, Trash. I'm more a, I was staff painting when Jean started the Mousling, so I painted a few of them. There aren't too many of them. My favorite is actually the Laura Craft model based on Tomb Raider. And then there's a Mousling Barmaid, I think. There aren't many females though. So now I want to make an even darker color, so I'm mixing my skin here with my liner to create even darker shadows for that. Is there a Maid Marian Mousling? I have no idea. Like I said, I'm not really a Mousling connoisseur. I painted a lot of them when they first came out, but I've lost track of the various iterations of Mouslingdom. Yeah, if you're a nature nerd, you have an advantage. There we go. So I still want a little bit of light back here, a little bit of ambient, even if it's only bounce light from the torch. All right, I'm going to bring in my shadow, my liner here. Now this is definitely one where I need to swatch these colors if I don't finish working with them by the end, which I probably won't. So you can kind of see how how the shadows are being pulled in here. I could probably even take even more of that warmth out of there, but I'm going to leave it for the moment. So yeah, the more I darken down my shadows, the more I bring them closer to black, the more I'm saying this figure is in almost total darkness. And if I leave them lighter, then I'm going to be like, this model is standing in like twilight, or there's another light source, a small ambient light source. Maybe luminescent moss if you're in a dungeon, you know, whatever. Here I'm not trying to define anything. I'm just trying to suggest that shift into shadow. Now you can see it. So even my cool shadow color is being dropped even colder as I add in these shadows and lining. Pendrake, we stopped. I think if I'm correct here, we stopped suggesting Mousling sculpts to Jean a long time ago, because for a while after Mouslings took off and after the first box set got an award at I think it got an Origins award, one of the only times I think that Reaper had won an Origins, but Jean got really burned out on them, and so it's like if Jean feels like sculpting a Mousling, then Jean can sculpt a Mousling, but otherwise, I don't think we make any. I don't know that Ron makes a suggestion of a Mousling anymore, because it's like when you're that burned out on a subject, because he sculpted so many of them then for that couple of years, then people like asking you for more Mouslings just gets really old and you just feel tired. So beware of that, actually, guys. Like with the sculptors, like and stuff. Like telling them how much you love their work and telling them, I really love your Mouslings, you know, I wish there were more women, but thanks so much for sculpting them. That's cool. But like, you know, will you ever sculpt this? Will you ever sculpt that? Like that can get really exhausting for an artist, especially if they're not inspired to work on that kind of subject matter right now. Oh, okay. I just wanted you to know because to me that sounded kind of like you were. I just wanted you to know. So I'm sorry if I misinterpreted you. I never know. I'm not sure. I wasn't quite sure if you were asking that if there was one or if we could do one. So. All right, I'm going to black in the eyes with my liner. I'm actually pretty happy with how cold this is coming down on this side now, and I'm getting some definition still. Oh. If you just type in Mousling to the searcher, you're probably going to get a bunch, Gibson. Yeah, yeah, Agent Marvel, I'm with you. You can always just Google trees and choose the pick you like. If it's just colors. Yeah, they're beady little mouse eyes, huh? And I need to put a shadow underneath that brow, too. Shadow on that side of the nose, just like for a human. Need to compare and look at where my light is falling. That's about right. The light will hit the bridge of the nose, but not the far side. But I don't want to totally wipe out my reddish color either. I need to ask myself where my most dramatic shadows will be. Yeah, if we did a beady mouse eye. I don't know if I want to do a beady mouse eye or if I want to do... I don't remember if I did human eyes on my previous Mouslings. I think I did. More humanoid. I think I need just a little bit more water in this liner. Oh, there are some giant Mouslings. See, you knew more than me there, Pendrake. I had no idea. All right, put in some lines here. Block in some shadows here. And I'm moving pretty slow here because I'm just trying to like feel my way through like the shadow colors here. And I'm kind of thinking I am going to go with a warm brown for this this belt. Like an orangey brown. And there's a shadow way under there and also a bit of a bubble there. Oh, the full-size Mouslings. Good. Yeah, I didn't even know those existed. Alrighty, got a little bit of a line there. All right, lining and a little bit more over here. And then I got to get that leather going on. So this blocking in all the shadowy parts can get pretty boring, but hopefully it's still been interesting to you guys as far as how I'm building my shadow palette. Just a little bit here. Probably paint over a lot of this. The light is going to be all around here, so I'll probably go over that lining a bit, but I'll keep a little bit of it. All right. And I may make the wood of the torch very similar to the leather color, just to be able to repeat colors around the model. I also haven't decided on a hilt color over here. Do you guys want me to do metallics or NMM? I'm going to give you the choice. Let's do a poll, Quindy. Do you have a second? Speaking of burnout, yes, I am. I can speak to burnout. Trying to think if I'm burned out on anything in particular right now. You know, I don't know that I am right now, Trash, because I'm able to switch it up so much. Like, I think that doing this stream and really switching up the sizes and types of models, and also, like, I don't, just like we were talking about tree men earlier, I'm really not inspired to paint them at all. Like, I really just don't enjoy it. So, like, by being able to avoid subject matter on this stream that I really am just kind of not very interested in, and being able to just paint the models that I really do like that Reaper has put out, I think has saved me a bit from the burnout feeling. I think my biggest trouble right now, Trash, honestly, as far as burnout goes, and maybe the rest of you, this will speak to you, my biggest trouble is I'll get excited about a model, I'll start the model, but then life will get in the way, and a month will go by, and 2 months will go by, maybe 3 months will go by, and I haven't done much progress on the model, and because I've just been frustrated and stymied and not had the time to finish the model, I lose complete interest in it. So I don't know how many, Tia, non-metallic metals or true metallics on the Mousling, guys. We have essentially his little shoulder pads, his little feet, his vambraces, and his sword. So, and this big button belt buckle. Pull. So yeah, so what I'm learning from this, y'all, is to fight for my painting time. Is that if I want to finish things and be excited about what I'm working on, because then of course, you know, after enough time has passed, I'm just like not inspired on the model anymore at all. And sometimes the model's like 3/4 done or 2/3 done. It doesn't really need that much more, but I've just totally lost impetus on it. I've lost momentum. And so what this made me realize is that despite how busy my life is, despite the puppy and her needs, despite, you know, wanting to do X or Y or wishing I could do X, Y, Z plus A and B, I have to actually seriously fight for my painting time in the evenings. I need to put my foot down, say, no, puppy, you're going to be fine in your crate. I'm not going to let you out for this extra half hour, or I'm not going to sit here with you to make you stop fussing, you know, or I'm not going to cook dinner tonight. We're going to have leftovers, or we're going to go out, or we're going to order out, right? I'm going to do that because I'm going to fight for my painting time tonight, and I'm going to get at least a half hour in. That's ugly, Agent Marvel. Like, I was just listening. I listen to business books a lot because I listen to a lot of like motivational books, and I'm also, you know, with the writing and everything, I'm kind of running my own business with the Patreon and the writing anyway. But yeah, they always say that is the thing not to do. They're like, you know, don't ever demote or cut pay. Just let the person go. Like, you'll do less damage to your company in the long run if you just like let the person go. And that person then can go out and get a good job, you know, without feeling like the company doesn't value them that they're working at. Like, that's just really hard. Poll is perfectly balanced, huh? I don't even have a strong opinion. Like, oh my God, Valandar, that's crazy. But yeah, so poll, guys. Tell me whether you want True Metallics or NMM on Mr. Mousling. Oh, nice, Pendrake. Chat purposefully made it 50-50. Ah, you know, when we give you guys the opportunity to like decide for us. But yeah, so essentially now, in order to avoid like running out of steam on a model that I'm really into, I have to make myself like I've gotta fight for the time to do it. I've got to put my foot down both with my surroundings and with myself and say, no, I'm not going to just sit and read my book. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit down for 20 minutes and work on the model. Because if I keep working on the model, even if it's only 20 minutes, I'll stay excited about it. But the minute that I start losing days and losing time and saying, oh, I don't need to paint tonight, I should just sit and read my book and keep the puppy quiet while David is working on his stuff, you know, then that's the death knell. That's the burnout time. That's when I don't finish the model that I started out really liking. Oh, poll is almost over, guys. Poll's almost over. Yeah, somewhat sagebrush. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing because the thing with building is that you build a model, you get super excited, but then you're really enjoying building. Okay, so True Metallics it is. Thank you everybody for weighing in. Okay, so we'll do TNMM. I'm gonna have to do it kind of weird. I'll have to think about how I'm gonna do it. But I lost it. Oh no, I lost my thread. Oh yeah. So the problem with building is that like you enjoy building, and so then you build another one, and then you build another one, and then you build another one, and it's one of those things that it gives you reinforcement, right? Because you enjoy building, and so every time you build another model, you feel good again, and then you build another one, and then you just fall. But then meanwhile, the model that you really liked back here that you built first is just kind of gathering dust in your head, and you're looking forward all the time, and you're never like the best way to do it is probably to build in like 3s or 2s, or if it's a big model, 1 at a time, and then jump into painting it while you're excited about it, right? Learn your mental quirks. It's so important, guys. So important to learn how your own mental quirks like matter. Like I'm only just starting to realize, like I knew it had impact, but I'm only now just starting to realize how much momentum matters for my excitement level on a project. And like that working on it every day really is important. It's not just, ooh, I skipped a day. It's working on it every day is important. And that's true for my exercise. That's true for my diet. That's true for painting. That's true for writing. It's true for everything in my life. So pay attention to how you feel when you're doing this stuff. Like if you start noticing, oh, I haven't worked on X, I really don't feel like it anymore. Kind of ask yourself, well, what did I do to get here? Right? Because you don't want to always be doing that. Like I know a lot of people who are always just like, oh, I'm just lazy. I just don't go back and finish a model. I just lose interest. But it isn't just that. Something happened that made you lose interest, either time or just, like a different thing that distracted you, So if you want to start finishing things and if you want to get that reward of finishing, like think more about how you lose track, how you start sliding away from a project. Because there's always a step where you start sliding away from it. If I put it down for a day, I can pick it up again, but it's really like, I can have one day, Miss Dimp, and then I need to get back on it. Yeah, but you can find that excuse everywhere, Gibson. Like, for me, it's puppy, right? I haven't walked for 3 days. But your health is worth more than that 20 or 30 minutes that your kid or your dog will lose, right? Like, it's all balance. It's all balance. And I feel like I need to speak up for me more sometimes because I am very much the person who will just like sacrifice for other people. Like I do it a lot. I've done it a lot through my whole life. And I've had to kind of fight to set boundaries. Boundaries are really hard for me. So, really, really hard. But I have to tell myself, is like, does it do the puppy any good if I feel sick and I'm not in good shape because I haven't been walking, right? And it doesn't. So it's priorities. It's priorities. You can always find somebody who needs you more than you. But it's not really the case. You need you. Nobody else is going to advocate for you. Right. And you know what? If you're going to prioritize your kids and say, you know what, I don't need mini painting as a hobby because I really want to spend more time with my kids, so I'm going to purposefully place kids above mini painting in my life, that's cool. Like, that's absolutely 100% go for it, right? But don't just slide there because you're kind of using it as an excuse. Like, understand that you've made that choice. And if that choice doesn't feel good to you when you really, like, consciously make it, then probably it shouldn't be your choice. Probably you should still try to paint for, like, 20 minutes a night. Yeah, maybe shifting your mini painting forward or backward works then. Troubleshoot. Right, and it's not necessarily great for you. Like, sometimes our culture is so terrible about this because our culture's like, oh no, don't be selfish. But at the same time, you kind of need to be, like, to be sane and to get the things that are important to you. Like, give them time. Like, we're very discouraged to spend time on ourselves. You know, like, just enjoying things, like doing things that we enjoy. There's always something that's more important than our hobbies, right? But our hobbies keep us sane. Yeah, right, Sagebrush. People are always gonna, because then they get to do what they want, right? But you don't get to do what you want. And they don't see the double standard in that, but it's there. And people will take advantage of you if you let them. So I'm going to block in some of this Indigo guys on the back here to get these shadows in. Back here, I probably need to go even darker. Away from the... Yeah, paint time after bedtime. Yeah, I would just snag some little bit of paint time after the kids are in bed. Sometimes I do that with the pupster. She's fussing right now. Papa, it's not time yet. Settle down. She knows it's close, though. But yeah, it just comes down to, like, how much do you value your paint time? You know, you're never going to get any bit of your life back. Not ever. So it's very much hard. I mean, it's a hard thing to decide what you want to use your life for. Like, and it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, you know, you can find some time to paint by yourself. Even if it's, you know, even if you're tired, even if it's late. Yeah, exactly, Agent Marvel. All right, so this side we're going to have some fire falling a little bit onto some of this, but there's also some shadow. Uh-huh. I gotta kind of look and see where my... There we go. A little bit. And always when I'm turning the model like this, I'm looking to see... You can see the edge of the fire there. So you can see the part of the cloak that it's going to hit. And anything else isn't going to get hit. So this area down here is shielded from the fire by this arm. So I'm able to paint in my indigo there and to shade it down. So that is looking okay. I want to maybe darken down a little bit more over here. Oh, puppy, so fussy. I'll be with you. Puppy's like, it's time for me to come out and have fun with Mama. I know that it's that time. She was a very dingo this morning. Very, very toothy dingo. Today her flirt pole comes in the mail, which is kind of like a deep sea fishing pole for dogs, for puppies. So I'm looking forward to that and being able to like run some energy out of her. Because she is a very energyful puppy. Got a little bit too hard. Yeah, thanks, Thormel. But yeah, so for me, it's that's where the burnout lies. The burnout lies in making decisions for other people all the time. So this is why I'm actually stepping away from my dog club stuff a bit. I've made the decision not to run for the board next year, and I've been on the board since we formed. Because that just eats up my life. And I care about the dogs, but I think I can serve just as well not having the extra responsibility of being a board member. There, so a little bit. If I look over here, this is probably also in shadow, so I'm going to paint it indigo. Knock it back. And in fact, most of this cape is probably in shadow. But I do want to keep some of that shadow green back there. I am going to bring it up a lot more. Bye, Crowley. Yeah, if you've got a really long commute, that makes it really, really hard. Then it's almost like bring your mini painting stuff to the office and paint on lunch. It really comes down to just like what are you willing to do to preserve your hobby for yourself? Like how important is it to you? And if it's not that important, it's not that important. Like that's fair. But if it keeps you sane and if you feel kind of down when you aren't able to do it, then think about prioritizing it. Yep. Yeah, I'm sure that they're going to be really freak out when I like say I don't want to be on the board anymore. I'm sure there's going to be some freak out there. But I think a lot of us older board members are thinking about it now. We've got some younger and more involved people coming up. And I think that's when you start thinking, you know what, maybe it's time to pass the torch. I still do a lot for the club because I'm also a breed warden. So I'm doing disease risks for breedings and stuff like that. But I'm also kind of membership coordinator right now, and I feel like I'm a very sucky membership coordinator because I'm only barely hanging on. And I just don't have time for it. It's a huge job. There we go. So we got some nice shadows coming in there. Yeah, I mean, it's a good, I mean, I used to paint at my job on my breaks, Scripson. Like, it's time that you can have just for you, and sometimes you even can start up conversations with coworkers, you know, about your hobby. Or you'll find out somebody at your job actually paints minis too, or used to, and then you have a cool new thing to talk about. Like, it's all just, yeah, what you need. But, I mean, the bottom line here is do what you need to do for you to, like, have sanity and be happy. Like, mini painting does make me happy. And when I don't do it for a long time, I feel kind of like... I don't feel as bad as I do about the writing. Like, writing, I will get depressed if I don't write. Like, if I fall out of my writing habit. Mini painting, it won't be quite that bad, but I'll just start feeling a little down and a little sad. And I'll look at all my models that I love, and I'll just feel even sadder. And so, for me, it is important for my mental health and happiness to make sure that I make the time somehow. And as the puppy gets older, this will be easier. But I don't want to wait 6 months to do this. So, you know, I'm not going to drop my painting for 6 months for the puppy. Sorry, puppy. Puppy's like, but why not? that's where setting a timer comes in, Gibson. Much as it might not be in your current like workflow when you're doing mini painting, but timers are great for that. If you must stop at a certain point. I have a sleep timer that pops up at 9:30 p.m. that just tells me, hey, if you want to get your bedtime stretches in, you need to stop in, after one more snooze. So, and sometimes I do choose to ignore it, but most of the time it keeps me on track. I really feel like having a life that we really enjoy is partially just about learning how to hack it. Like how to minimize the parts that we don't enjoy, only doing what we have to, and then to maximize like our enjoyment of the rest. Even if we have to like use little tricks and tips to get there. So there we go. So now we've got a very muted, got our shadows in there. So I haven't done anything. I started with a shadow color that was pretty dark, but I've only brought it down. So my highlights are essentially a shadow. And same with the fur right now. So this is coming along, I think, pretty well. We're starting out very, very dark. I'll have to figure out how I want to do I may do the metallics by actually starting with an NMM just kind of sketch and then putting the metallics over the top. But I need to make sure my lighting is okay. Yep. So yeah, okay. So I actually started not too late today, so that's great. So we've got this at least mapped in. Now I need to make a card, right? I've got my card right here. Fresh new card for Mousling. Mousling. Ears. Those are not very Mousling ears. Those are more like cat ears. But anyway. Auburn shadow. Plus night sky, deep ocean, and often if a color is very dark and I'm doing a swatch, I will grab some water in my brush and I will kind of pull the color out, because it's easier to see the color if I do it this way. And then it's Naga Leaf Bud 50/50. I'm coming, Papa. Little puppy. She's so silly. And then we put plus Ergothoa. And night sky. And I'll note here and for the Mousling skin, I have Rosy Shadow. Plus Night Sky and Deep Ocean. General Shadow is Night Sky, Death Knight. Liner is Death Knight, Blue Liner. There we go. My kid swatch. So yeah, just and again, I'm using a little bit of extra water so that I can see the color. Well, except for this lighter color where I can see it. And then my liner color is much more blue. There's my color palette. Don't need a lot of a swatch, just enough to kind of tell me where I'm at. And now I have a guide for my Mousling for my shadow colors. I can flip this over and do my highlight colors or my regular colors on the back. But yeah, so there we are. That's great. I should also make a note of my light color. even though I didn't swatch it, Candlelight and Explosion. Because I chose everything else with that in mind, so I need to remember that that's my light color. Alrighty, there we go. We have Mousling swatches and a Mousling, and that's way too dark. There we go. So let me see if I can put this here. Let's try it this way. So you guys can see the blue shadows really well here now if I put a black background on. You can also see that I'm keeping some of the red. On the back you can see where I'm bringing in those darker shadows. You still see that I've got a lot of the red. I may throw more blue shadows in here. We'll see how it goes. Depends on how dark I want to take everything. And as I work this model in general, I will be darkening parts and lightening other parts to make it work. So this is a very progressive kind of step-by-step OSL where I'm just kind of like feeling my way through in order to like show you guys like how I'm going to adjust things as they come. And yeah, once we start introducing the light, then we're really going to see some shifting. So I hope this was fun for you guys, and I hope this was instructive. So a little bit of swatches are a little bit overwhelmed with the white card, but you get the idea. And I might not have to mix all of these up. I might just mix my shadow and just play with it. I may do some spot mixes, but this gives me kind of a guide. Yeah, you heard the puppy squeak on that one. Yeah. So yeah, this is mixing natural colors pretty much, like natural shadows for colors, based on a couple of portraiture books that I was studying. Yeah, it's a very muted color palette. It's really pretty. Like if we just added white to these and brought them up and warmed them up just a little bit, it'd be a great color palette. So yeah, it's useful for very dark colors to see how it shifts. That's why I sometimes do my swatches for the Patreon that way. I'll add white or I'll add water so that you can see the color on really dark colors. Very useful. All right, everybody. Yes, there's my stuff. I have not gotten to the 2 new fundamentals videos. I've got a coaching to finish first, but I will be working on the fundamentals videos and getting 2 new fundamentals videos on my YouTube this week. That's the second link from the bottom. You can go watch my fundamentals videos if you haven't. And I have a Patreon, patreon.com/paintingbig, which I did manage to get everything done for by the end of the month. God, thank you. And yeah, so now we'll start working on the content for this month. Let me slide my Mousling back over here. Tomorrow, we will be back on Fishy. We're back on Fishy. We've got a really nice blue going on down there. So we'll probably continue working on, we need to get this side of Fishy's face. We'll probably work a bit on this side of Fishy's face. We'll continue working on all of this in the water. I want to get all of his blue kind of laid in because now it's giving me a better feel for what I want to do with the rest of him. But I think coral is definitely going to come into this. Yeah, Fishy. Exactly. So there we go, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a lovely day. And I'm going to go and rescue my poor puppy. All right? Have a good one. Bye-bye.